Glad you're able to be with us today.
Okay.
You're being welcomed in. We want to welcome you to our webinar this morning. We're excited if this is your first time with us, just to let you know that your mic is being muted as you come on board, simply because that helps us keep down background noise and such. If you have been with us before, you're already well aware of that. We will have an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you would type those into the chat screen, we would appreciate that. We have me and Alyssa monitoring the Zoom chat stream. Mark Ye is on Facebook monitoring the chat stream there. So we really appreciate you being here and typing in all your questions. Got a feeling that today you might have several. Lots of things going on right now. Hope you're all well. Things are going well here in Kentucky. We are getting our first snowstorm of the season, so we're expecting about 6 inches of snow here in Louisville this morning, so that's pretty exciting. We are recovering still from the tornadoes. All of you, we appreciate all the prayers and all of you who reached out to us here during that time to make sure that we were okay, and recovery is starting to happen here with that. So continue to ask for your prayers for all the people who were affected, the communities of Mayfield and Dawson Springs, Hopkinsville, and Bowling Green especially, who were hit pretty hard with all that. So lift those folks up in your prayers, and we really appreciate you doing that. So once again, welcome this morning. Thanks for being with us. Looking forward to having you with us here today. We've got some really great topics. We have some guests with us today. We have James, Salma, and Ashley in the studio with us today. We'll be getting to those in just a second here with their comments and conversations. Also today, we're going to be talking about retreat cruises. We're excited about that. We're going to be talking about river cruises. Just got back from a river cruise myself, as most of you know, and had a marvelous time on the Christmas Markets cruise, and we encourage everybody to try to do that. James is going to have the Holy Land update, which is being updated this very second. Things are changing, so it's really exciting there. And then I will be sharing about FAMs and bring you up to speed on where we are with all the different FAM options that we have and what's going on. So good morning there in the studio, James, Ashley, Salma. How are y'all this morning?
Good morning, Tom. I brought the really intelligent folks here to the webinar today. So
yeah. I thought, Amanda, your people in the studio, you upgraded a lot since I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's some serious topics today, so I had to bring this really serious people.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. I mean, you need some intellect to go along. I mean, much better than our golf banter and all that stuff. I mean, they can actually contribute to the webinar.
Exactly.
Yeah. So are you suffering from whiplash this morning?
As far as the whiplash from what, the Holy Land?
Yeah, from the Holy Land. So we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I mean, I had mentally prepared the whole script today, and then, wow, at 9 o'clock, everything totally changed. Okay, back to the drawing board. We invited Ashley because I needed the expert here. So and Salma was already coming, and so Salma will have even better things to tell us today.
Well, even it's amazing that how quickly things change, and if we've learned nothing else during this time, it's how to be flexible and adjust on the fly, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, yeah, and we're going to be adjusting the rest of the afternoon. So.
Yeah, and into tomorrow. So, well, we've got some really neat topics for everyone to hear today, and like I said, we really appreciate everybody being here. Our first little thing that we're going to share here is going to be Kelly Clem. Kelly is a district superintendent in the North Alabama Annual Conference. She was one of the people that I was working with as we tried to do our pastoral care cruises over the past several months, where we gave opportunity for pastors to travel to different cruises, courtesy of Royal Caribbean Group, which was really marvelous of them and the cruise line there to give us those opportunities to share and bless pastors. And Kelly and the North Alabama Conference took it very seriously and because of that, made some changes there in North Alabama. And so Kelly's going to share with us for a few minutes here of an interview I did with her. So John, Shelby, Ryan, could we go to Kelly's interview? Kelly, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So Kelly, you and your husband Dale have traveled with EO previously, but recently some things have changed with some of that. Not about the travel, but just a different kind of thinking about travel a little bit has arisen out of that, which is really what I want us to focus on today, which is really cool. Tell me a little bit, if you could, about the North Alabama Clergy Care Initiative that you guys have started recently.
Okay, thank you. We have really been working hard. Our bishop has made this one of the priorities for us because we've realized that clergy are under extreme stress right now. There's a high dropout rate. There's just all of our counselors are telling us that people are under, dealing with a lot more personal issues than before. So we've decided to really make a concerted effort to care for our clergy. And this was one thing that we're able to do. We just right out of the gate is to give them trips or sponsor trips where we give some scholarship help to them and make trips affordable so that they can do that safely. And really, there's nothing like travel to help you in your ministry and your life and your family and so many things. So this just seems like the perfect opportunity right now to make this part of our clergy care initiative in the North Alabama Conference. So
you had some trips that some of your folks took previously, and we got to talk to you once before about some of that. So those were all successful and they came back with good reports.
Oh gosh, they can't stop talking about them. And every time they see me, they tell me more about, how much the trip meant to them. So that was perfect. And those who said they had never been on a cruise before wondered why they had never done that before, but they didn't realize how much they needed it until they kind of won it. And they were like, well, I guess I won this, I'm going to go. And they all had a really positive experience.
Great, that's great. So this upcoming trip then that we're kind of focusing on talking about today, you decided to do a retreat cruise.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, I would say just personally for the last, I've been in the North Alabama Conference as a pastor for over 35 years, and we've had so many clergy women's retreats because at first there were probably about 5 or 6 of us, and now there are over 100, maybe 170 on my list anyway, that we have. So we're not this minority that just have to get together, but we have met together every few years as for a clergy women's retreat. And the last one we had was about 8 hours away, and it was part of the Southeast jurisdiction. So that was fun. We had a pretty good turnout for that, but it takes a lot of work, and who's going to take the time to plan it and pull it off? So this really seemed like a golden opportunity to go together, travel together, and still, especially on our one day at sea that we have, we will plan whatever people want. So there's a lot of flexibility, and it will feel like a retreat. And in retreat, we have a lot of fellowship. You've got all the alone time that you want, and you've got all the social time that you want, and meals are taken care of.
And so it's something that's very inexpensive.
Yes.
So that you felt like fit kind of the criteria for getaway, because what makes that such great option for you because doing it that way?
I think that a cruise like this is just so flexible. The cost is right. We've used retreat centers before, but they're going to, price wise, you're going to come out pretty close to this. And with all the extras of just being on a cruise together, I'd say it's a great value.
So, having a little gathering workshop impromptu on the beach is a possibility.
Absolutely. Yes. We're looking for a cabana, but certainly we will do that. That just really gives us so much more flexibility, certainly for people to do fun things. I think that, travel, just getting out of the country, getting away from the internet, it just really is really good for us to do. I think the timing of this is perfect. This may be the perfect opportunity to do a retreat cruise that I've ever seen.
Great, great. So you've traveled quite a bit. I mean, you enjoy travel. You got a cruise that's upcoming.
Yes.
How has travel been important to you, your personal faith, your personal growth, and your ministry through, did you say 35 years now?
Yes. This is my 36th year, actually. But really, all of my life, I've been given opportunities to travel for study. And then I would say in seminary, mission sort of, we went to Mexico to learn about just kind of life and ministry in Mexico, many mission trips and overseas mission trips, study trips. I was part of a study group that went to South Africa. And so travel just expands my horizons. It makes me feel like I'm a citizen of the world. And I think travel just changes you. The best trips have been the ones where I get to meet other people who live in those places where we go. But just getting away and getting out of your own little narrow mindset and world and environment is such a healthy thing. So I'm a big advocate of travel.
Great. So it has been fed into your ministry and how you approach that in the world, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Other folks might be a little bit hesitant to travel right now.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to encourage them?
I think I would say to people, don't, if you've been vaccinated, don't worry about that part of it. I think that you'll be just as safe or safer. I mean, our restaurants around here, people aren't even wearing masks. I don't know if they just haven't gotten the memo about Omicron, but I just find that people are a little bit more lax than they are on a trip, on a cruise, or in another country. But it's just as far as travel, I would say, this is self-care. You need this. You need to laugh. You need to get out of your house. Most of us have been cooped up in a house to do our work and have our families with us. And you just need to get out, get some fresh air, and experience God's beautiful world and meet some beautiful people, and just take advantage of the opportunity to travel and to travel with friends.
Well, good. Anything else you want to share with our folks as they listen today about travel, your experiences, the upcoming retreat cruise, or thinking outside the box other than just, let's get a group and go to the Holy Land?
I love travel, and I love the way that EO works with us, and I'm excited. That's all I can say, really. Is I would say to people, just go. If it's scary to you, just trust the person you're going with, and just take the plunge, because you won't be sorry. Great.
Thanks, Kelly. We really appreciate that. Great time to talk with her. She's such a wonderful person, and it's really neat to see how that she's thinking outside the box when it comes to how to use travel as a part of ministry, and really excited about this upcoming retreat cruise that they've got scheduled there. Really can't wait to hear how that goes here in just a few months. We're going to hear from Kelly again because she was on a Rhine River cruise, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in a webinar here. But right now we're going back to the studio there in Lakeland. James is going to talk with Salma and Ashley, and maybe just a smidge about the Holy Land. Hey, James.
Thanks, Tom. That was a great interview with Kelly. I really enjoyed that. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is staying well with the Omicron variant case number high here in the United States. We've certainly had our share of cases amongst the EO staff, so we've seemed like have a rolling number either out with it or on quarantine here the last week. So I know the phones have been a little heavy just because of that. But I'm pleased to report no one ended up in the hospital or anything. Just a lot of folks quarantining at home. So we do have good news on the Holy Land, as Tom prefaced at the top. In the last 2 hours, Israel's announced that Americans can return to Israel with proper documentation effective tonight. So it's sort of like a shotgun start here. This does not, this does seem sort of a rather abrupt announcement after we spent 5 weeks of being closed. But all along, Israel said that they wanted to see the threat that Omicron, the variant, posed and prepare as effectively as possible for when it did come eventually. And obviously they tried to stall and keep it out as long as possible. And that was effective for a time, but their numbers are rising too, just like in the United States and the world. So their numbers are spiking. They're probably a week, maybe 2 weeks behind us. And they project, their epidemiologists project that that will peak in 3 weeks, pretty much like what we're seeing here in the United States. With the vast majority of those cases now coming from community spread in Israel, and with the vaccination and testing requirements for entry for foreigners like us, the possibility of a handful of cases coming from abroad was no longer a significant threat for Israel. So thus, Israel has chosen to reopen the country to all countries that were permitted to enter before they shut down for the Omicron variant. So that's good news. The tourism industry is looking forward to welcoming everyone back. We have Salma here from the Holy Land with us. We don't foresee any changes to the experience in the Holy Land, and we'll review a few testimonials from the fall, just in case you've missed some of those webinars in the past here after we finish talking with Ashley and Salma. So, as we said, 2 special guests today. I mean, I couldn't do all this by myself, so I figured I'd fly Salma in from Israel, and she got here just in time. I think she came, 2 days ago?
2 days ago,
2 days ago, yeah. And Ashley Whiteman's here, and Ashley's here all the time and working all the time. And Ashley and her team of 3 are responsible for all of our ground operations around the world. So it's Ashley's a big job. And she's also spearheaded all the necessary compliance for entry into Israel for all of our guests who travel to the Holy Land in 2021. So I wanted Ashley particularly to join us today to review the entry requirements as they stand for Israel today, because I know that's going to be a lot of questions, and I don't trust myself to get all those right. So Ashley is here. So Ashley, I know you have some slides for us.
Sure, yes. Okay, great. So I'll go over this very quickly. We'll talk a little bit about what is required now to enter into Israel. So the first thing that I want to kind of review here is what the definition of a fully vaccinated person is. Israel is still requiring everyone to be fully vaccinated, as we're calling it, to travel there. So there's kind of 2 ways you can meet that requirement. The first is you receive your full vaccine dose, so that would be like 1 Johnson & Johnson shot or 2 Moderna and Pfizer shots, more than 2 weeks before your travel, but less than 6 months at the start of your travel. So you have to get it within 6 months of travel, but more than 2 weeks. So that's the first way you could be considered fully vaccinated. But in many cases, like the 3 of us here, we received our vaccines more than 6 months ago. So in our cases, we all have to receive a booster shot to be considered fully vaccinated. So we have to get our booster shot, our 3rd shot, or our 2nd shot if it's Johnson & Johnson, and that booster must be taken more than 14 days before travel. So that's pretty much the definition or the requirement that you have to meet on that vaccination status there.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the main thing. So if you meet that requirement, then basically you just have to go through the steps here to get your necessary tests. So I'll talk a little bit about like what to expect, what's needed for travel to Israel. The first thing is you have to have a test when you're here in the US before travel. That can be either a PCR test taken 72 hours or an antigen rapid test taken 24 hours. The key here is that test must be taken 72 or 24 hours before your flight to Israel. So it's not your domestic flight from the city you live in, it's your flight to Israel. So if you have a connection somewhere, just make sure to use the time of your departure for that flight to Israel to do your calculation. So that's the key there with that.
Now, the antigen test is new, correct?
That is brand
That
new.
is
So
new,
that's the biggest change that we're seeing right now. I'm still obviously reading everything online, making sure that that's actually the case. But what I've read so far this morning in the last 2 hours is that the 24 hours before the flight to Israel for an antigen test.
And let me just interrupt one more time.
Sure.
I mean, you just said you've been reading the last 2 hours, but basically what you're seeing is everything's ready to go online. The forms, everything is there.
Yes, it seems like everything on the Israel website that I was using to kind of for my guidance over these past few months is still published there. They have not changed the language on the website yet to say that we can officially go. I imagine that'll come probably Sunday morning, but yeah, everything's there. The timing of the test, what's required, the forms you have to fill out. That's
Right, but the forms
links.
were actually down for a while, right?
Correct.
During
Yes.
the closure. So those are back up.
Yes, so they disabled that form, I mean, for the last month or so. But when I checked this morning, I was able to click on it and start it. So I don't think we'll have any issues. It looks like they've already started, redeploying all of that.
So sorry to interrupt.
No problem. So the other thing is you have to have some kind of insurance or travel protection that covers contracting COVID while traveling. So Israel always required some sort of protection or coverage in case you got COVID while traveling. So that's pretty much, it's a kind of a vague way to describe it, but that's how they're asking for it. So we do ask that you have that before travel. You may need to show that at the airport when checking in for your flight. You may not. So we've heard reports both ways. The other thing is you have to have a completed online health declaration form. This is actually very important because when you do this health declaration form, you're emailed a green pass. This green pass is your pass to get into Israel. So that's a very important step. For those of you who've traveled with us in 2021, you're probably used to this. Most countries have some sort of health form or PLF form. Israel has one as well. So that's the important thing. You will need to show that when checking in for your flight. We also recommend you take your vaccine card with you. That's super important to have. And last but not least, you will have a test right upon arrival in Israel. We actually pre-purchased that test for you, so we'll provide you like a barcode.
For the vaccine cards, actually, it's way much better to keep it always with you because they will ask about it also upon, like, sometimes for the
Restaurants.
sites like the museums, they will ask about the vaccine cards. So this
Just
is what-
have it.
Yeah, because we faced this situation before.
And then obviously you have to have that arrival test code, and we'll provide that to you. So when we send you your final documents, we send all of this to you. So I don't expect all of you to remember it, but just to kind of go over again what's required so everyone's on the same page. And if anything changes, we'll let you know. And the only other thing I kind of wanted to talk about is while you're actually traveling in Israel, what to expect a little bit, and Salma can help me out with this part. So when you, like I said, when you arrive in Israel, you'll have that test upon arrival, and you'll get that at the airport. Then you will pretty much immediately transfer to your hotel, and you'll be in a quarantine.
Yep.
And that is either for 24 hours or until you get your PCR test results that you took at the airport. And then your guide will actually assist you with clearing from quarantine. So Salma, do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like?
So regarding the arrival, you will get tested in the airport. Actually, the last 2-3 months, it's been really easy and smooth. You will not even wait. I always tell the guests you will wait like 12 to 24 hours, but usually we will get it like in 4 to 5 hours. That's great. So it's not gonna mess your schedule or anything. You will start touring the next day in the morning. Regarding arrival to the airport, so the guide will not, they are not allowed now to enter the airport. So, but we have a staff waiting for you there. The minute that you arrive to Tel Aviv, then they will take to the guide. He will be waiting like outside the airport. They will do the transfer, and I'll be waiting for you at the hotels there. You need to go direct to quarantine to your rooms. Also, you will have your dinner at your room and everything, and by next day, everything will go back to normal. So it's not really complicated. I know a lot of you that when you arrive, you will have all this, questions and stress, but it's not as,
It runs
you
very
think.
smooth.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really, it's no big deal because
And
you
now they are
arrive.
used to it. At first, let's say July, it was a new thing for them. Now, they know it.
And like Salma said, you go right to the hotel and go into your quarantine. I mean, at that point, it's 5 p.m., 6 p.m. at night. You're ready to have dinner and rest. So it works perfectly. And then the only other thing I wanted to talk about is when you're coming home. So the U.S. still requires you to receive a test within 1 day of your return home, regardless of where you're coming from, no matter where in the world. So we will schedule that test for you in advance, and you'll take that in your hotel. If you're going on to an extension somewhere, so if you're going to Jordan or Egypt afterwards, you still need that test to enter that country. So you need that test to go to Jordan. And then again, in Jordan, you'll test to come home within that day to meet the US's requirement. So that's pretty much it. I think I covered it all. But that's what it's looking like right now. Just kind of a quick overview of what to expect. I really don't anticipate it changing for a while. It seems to be working well, this whole process.
The thing is, like, there's nothing they can even add. You are vaccinated 3 shots.
Yes.
You did your PCR. You are wearing your mask. So, like, nothing to add to this.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, we've got a couple good questions here. I have questions. So let's first, because you talked about the vaccine cards. Lynn Eberhardt asked, do we need the original vaccine card to show, or will a hard copy or digital version be okay?
Personally, actually, I prefer the original one because, you never know what will happen. Or take a picture of it on your phone, just in case if you lost it. Like, the guide will manage it on site, but I always advise to keep it with you, like, in your bag. I always personally keep it with me wherever I go.
Okay. This question hasn't been asked, but I know it's been on the news a little bit, so we'll just ask it now. I mean, Israel has started a 4th booster program for those over 60. And that's really literally only been going a week. It's definitely only 3 shots.
Yes. So right now, if you read the requirements, it pretty much says you have to have the first and second dose within 6 months of travel. I should say the second dose within 6 months of travel, or a 3rd booster shot. It does not say that there's a time limit on the 3rd booster. It truly does not even reference what that looks like. So right now, everybody who's traveled with us who's had the booster shot has been fine.
Correct.
And I mean, even in the U.S. here, we've started some immunocompromised people have received like a fourth booster. Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't heard anything yet. Right now, it's just the 3rd.
So for the 4th booster, there's a lot of discussions about that. So for now, it's just the 3rd shot. Even nothing like is going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
now, and we have not had anyone test positive during any of our trips.
No, actually.
Back when they had the serological test, we had a couple fail that.
2 cases that they tested negative for the serology.
Right.
But what I did, actually, they tested negative, positive, and they told me that they have to quarantine either 14 days in Israel or go home. So I was like, okay, let me just send them to their rooms. They had like a good time of sleep, and I sent them vitamins and fresh orange juice. Next day we did the test again, and it came out positive. So they continued the tour normally. So but tested positive for COVID, we've never
we've
had
not
it.
had.
No.
Now the question from Cindy Stern, and I know Cindy's group was scheduled to go a week from today. So they're right here on the edge. If someone in the group tests positive for COVID, do they quarantine just that person or the entire group?
So yes, it's what we've read, and from what we understand, of course, we haven't actually experienced it. We've been incredibly lucky, but it's just the person who tests positive. They will get taken into a quarantine situation, which is pretty much government run.
Yeah, it's a government.
So
mainly hotels in Israel.
Yeah.
Right. And those rules keep changing.
Yes.
And they seem to be getting a little more lax, like they're getting laxer here. So I noticed the quarantine's down to 5 days, just like here.
Yeah.
And they seem to allow more people to quarantine at home.
Correct.
So
it's
again,
not strict as before.
There's been no tourists there, so it'll be interesting to see if they make those rules a little bit more lax.
Even actually for the tourists, like comparing July with, let's say, November, there was a huge difference in the quarantine process, or Because actually, to be honest, the safest you are when you are like with tourists now. They got tested, they got their vaccines, they are wearing masks everywhere. So they are really flexible in this. And they allow you also to redo the test, even if you tested positive.
Okay. Okay, let me finish with Ashley, Salma, because you have jumped in here well. We appreciate that. I haven't really introduced you, but
You don't need to.
you're just sort of our Mr. Guest over there at this point, who we know can cook from Christmas a year ago.
Oh my God,
yes.
From the Makluba episode. But Ashley, coming back to you quickly here, we project our first group. We have 2 groups on January 13th. We know the Stearns are.
Yes, it was Cindy's.
Yeah, we know they're definitely considering what their options are. Don and Claudia Erickson definitely want to go. I've heard that just before the webinar. So our first group will probably depart on the 13th.
Correct, yes.
So we're making a visit to the air department to start the
Yes,
ticketing
our next
process.
stop, first stop was to talk to you. Next stop is to go to the air department.
So can you give us a timeline of, okay, when are we returning to ticketing, documents? What do you foresee here?
So really, we can pretty much begin ticketing immediately. The only thing that could hold us up from ticketing is if we don't have everybody's vaccine cards and passport copies in-house. So we have to have the vaccine cards and we have to have the passport copies for a number of reasons. Our overseas partners actually need all of those copies. In addition to book any testing that I was talking about, like all the arrival tests and return tests, we have to have that stuff. So we will not ticket a group until we have everybody's information in-house, settled, good to go. And when I say vaccine card copy, it has to be with the booster shot. It has to be your full vaccine dosage.
All three, if all three
all
are
three,
necessary.
if that's required,
Right.
yes. So, but as soon as we look over the group, if we have all of that, no big deal. We can start getting things ticketed, getting things moving. So anyway, if you hear from us, if we give you a call, that could be to get that vaccine card.
Okay. And you and the team of three, and I'm not including Salma's on your team, so let's say 4.
4 with Salma.
4 with Salma. You all have been working, just waiting for this day to happen.
Pretty much, yes. So
standing by.
we still kept things moving on our end. I mean, we still had, buses assigned, and we were like, okay, we have hotel rooms. We have hotel rooms waiting for all of you. We were ready to go. So now we just have to guides. Everybody's
everything.
booked. We're just sitting here waiting to pull the trigger, get them ticketed, and get everybody over there. So yeah.
Good. And documents, your timeline on that, and tell us about the documents have changed if you haven't traveled in the last couple of years.
Sure. So if you haven't traveled with us recently, in the last year we've switched to electronic documentation. So that electronic documentation comes to you via email. The great thing about the electronic documentation, there's 2 great things. The first is when it's ready to go, you get it that instant. We can send the email. So you get things a lot quicker. You don't have to wait for shipping. Maybe, UPS accidentally loses your package. We don't have those issues. The second thing is that they have clickable links, which when I keep talking about all these health forms and all these things you need to do, having a link to click on to get to that health form, to fill it out right from your documents, in my opinion, is great. It makes things easier, win-win. So you'll receive those from us by email. So if we don't have your email address on file, please provide that to us. But should be easy,
Okay.
pretty quick.
Good. We're definitely getting some more questions
Oh,
here.
good.
But I appreciate you just giving us sort of the lay of the land there,
Sure.
of what to expect going forward. There's another question here. In Salma, you came. So let's introduce Salma here before we get too far along. I'll be doing that the last thing. So Salma Musleh is here from the Holy Land. Salma has been our hospitality person at the Olive Tree since July. She lives in Bethlehem. Family lives in Jericho.
Yeah.
A long time family, obviously, in the Holy Land. So we've been blessed to have her. Salma started working for us hospitality in October of 2019. One of my better hires. I've made a lot of bad ones through the years, but Salma I interviewed, and we had her on a trip in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Next
day.
Literally the next day. And Salma was great during COVID, managing the COVID situation when it first started in March of 2020. And then she came and worked here for 7-8 months during COVID. So she worked here in Florida for a while and went back in July. Really, in Jerusalem, because most of our groups finish in Jerusalem.
Yeah.
That's always the most challenging assignment because you have people going to Jordan, going to Egypt, going home, doing all kinds of things. So Salma's responsible to get people back now, managing tests and getting tests. So it's a full plate now for our hospitality teams in Jerusalem. So Salma did a great job working with us here in Florida, working with everyone there, looking after everyone. So Salma, we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, you obviously came you're an American citizen, you have an American passport, but being Palestinian, you can't fly out of Tel Aviv. At least not now. That may change.
Yeah.
That was great news last week. But so you actually have to go to Jordan to go anywhere.
So I need to cross to Jordan and fly from Amman.
Right.
But like now they announced it recently, still not confirmed, that if you are like a Palestinian American, you can fly from Tel Aviv. So it's going to make our lives way much easier.
So the question here is about Jordan and going to, and so you've actually crossed with a group. You just crossed a couple days ago.
Yeah.
If we need a test before entering Jordan, will there be another quarantine requirement in Jordan?
No. So when you do the test before you leave, like in Jerusalem, you will so the past 2 weeks actually, they re-announced that you need to do, even if you did the test in Jerusalem this morning, upon arrival in Jordan, like after 3 hours, you need to do another PCR test. But 2 days ago before I came, they said next week they will remove this regulation. So it's going to be just the PCR in Jerusalem, crossing the borders, and start the tour normally.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no quarantine there.
Okay. Good. That was one question. Ashley, a question for you, just making me think about it. Those of you who are doing Jordan and then coming to Israel, in the first quarter we've talked to you about, we've changed the itineraries. We're starting in Israel,
Correct.
going. Any thought on what happens April and beyond?
It's a good question. The biggest thing for us in Jordan and Egypt, and if you have an itinerary that goes to one of those countries, with nobody being on a red list with Israel, in theory that would work. The only thing we have to wait on is the borders to open for that land crossing. So as it currently stands, if you are going on to Jordan, if you were supposed to go before Israel, we've rearranged your itinerary where you go to Israel first now, so that way you can cross and exit out. But if the border opens, I don't see why we couldn't have you go to Jordan first and cross in. That's just, I think they have to have their testing facilities, everything set up at the border first.
Okay, good. So Salma, back to you. You're here. We obviously did not think Israel was going to open today, or else we just had stay there, Salma.
I'm stressing out since the morning about that.
Yeah, but you're here, so we will send other hospitality. We had already been talking about that anyway before this. So Salma, what are you doing here now? You're going to be here for a month. What are you doing?
So I think I wear a lot of hats at EO. So every time, like even the hosts and the guests ask me while touring, like, so what do you do for EO? I was like, a lot of things. So I'll be confused what to answer. But mainly, so in the Holy Land, I do hospitality and like managing the operations on ground. Here, I'm doing more like the guest services stuff. If the guests have any questions about Israel, I'm on phones, giving them all the answers. So this is the main part, helping in this, because, after today, the phones went crazy.
Right. So if you're calling in, you could actually talk to Salma for the month of January. So in case you're
now all the calls will come to me.
In case you're sort of surprised if you get her. So Salma, let's talk a little bit about the group's experience there. One question we've had is the mask requirement. You sort of touched on it a little bit.
So actually, as what I experienced since July, if I want to advise anyone to travel, the best time to travel is this time. And I heard this from even a lot of groups and hosts that traveled many times with EO. They came to me and they were like, Salma, this was my best trip so far. And I can see like a couple of the hosts that traveled the past 6 months here, so hi. The thing is, the masks, to be honest, yes, enclosed, like in the hotels in these areas, you have to wear it. But outside, and the best part is most of our sites is outdoor.
Outside.
You don't need to wear it. But other than that, it's been actually really smooth. Like since July until now, the sites, they've been empty. So maybe it was the best trip for them because you will have time to sit at the site, pray, reflect. It's not like 2019 when you barely can take a picture and leave. Also with the social distancing, so they can't put like, even if there is another groups waiting, you have to wait until this group finishes. So that was the best part of COVID. I know it's been negative in a lot of people, but that was the best part of tourism the past 6 months in the Holy Land.
Right. Now, tell us, obviously, we have to get a test to come home, or you have to get QR codes for Jordan or things. So tell us, what are you doing? How are you facilitating all that?
So with that, we always book a private PCR to our groups at the hotel, so they don't need to go to any hospital or anything. So there will be 2 nurses or 1 that they will come to the hotel wherever you are staying. It's going to take like around 1 hour. They will just ask for the passports. They will scan your documents and get you like a barcode. And you will get tested and you will receive the results. It's been actually really fast lately. So like with 7-8 hours, we will get the results and we will print it out for the guests, hand it to them, and they will be ready to go. They will receive it on the email too, but I always advise to keep like a hard copy with them, just in case. You never know what will happen. Regarding like if you want to go to Jordan after that, I'm always there to help like with the forms because I know it's a little bit complicated. Even I fill it like for the groups who wants to cross. You fill all your information and you get a QR code to enter Jordan. So everything is like arranged like privately. You don't need to worry about anything as a host or as a guest because we are managing all this stuff. So it's just like a PCR at the hotel, private service.
Salma will be there.
Salma will be there.
Yeah. So Salma, I mean, really, listen, I mean, okay, you have to wear masks indoors. You've got to do the tests and, the QR codes and things. But I mean, the touring and that's pretty much the same experience, right?
It's the same. It's better actually now. It's way much better. Like what I noticed too, people are really like, they loved the tourists before, but now it's on a different level. They are like celebrities. Like you will be walking in the old city and just random people will stop the group saying like, thank you for coming. Thank you for choosing to come. We are so happy to see you. We are so happy to speak English again. So at first, actually the guests, when they started coming back, they were like really scared of like how the people will look at them. And they were like really impressed about the people's reactions and everything. Like they are really happy to see us. So it's even like better than before actually. It's more organized.
Okay. The question came into my ear here. Do you have to have a particular mask or just a cloth mask?
No, any mask.
Any mask?
Yeah,
okay.
any mask.
Okay. A common question we've had over the last almost 2 years now is, how are things in Bethlehem? So you live there, so
Yeah.
I can't ask a better person.
So actually, the past years, it's been really sad to the people, especially who works in tourism. And Bethlehem, let's say 80% of the businesses there depend on tourism. Even restaurants, like a normal restaurant, because, So it's been really sad, but I was impressed with the people there because a lot of them, they took the chance to renovate their places, to improve their services because, 2019, it was a big year for tourism and it was so crowded. So I can see like their services are way much better now. They always like, they look into the details now, especially now because of COVID and everything. But it's been hard. Like it's been hard on everyone actually. But tourism is picking up now, and yeah. So just as I always say, just like coming there and walking the streets, you are bringing a lot of happiness to the people.
Yeah. Same in Jericho?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Jericho people are always happy.
Okay.
They just don't care.
Very good. Well, we again appreciate all you do and appreciate you coming here. And,
Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, and at least jumping in, answering phone calls, and helping us get everyone there. Tom, before I send it back to you, I know we have some testimonials from November to show, and if you have more questions, just send them in. We'll tackle those. But let's look at that, and these are groups that Salma would have been with, so Salma should be able to recognize everyone there. So we will just review that real quick, and please send us any more questions you have.
My name is Dave Marty, and this is my wife Mary, and together we are leading a group of 22 people here in the Holy Land. It's been an awesome experience already. We've been here about 5 days. The first 4, we were up in the region of the Galilee, did many wonderful things there, and then just today we headed south toward Jericho after stopping at Samaria, Jacob's Well, and then we made a stop right here to the baptismal site on the Jordan, where several of our people rededicated themselves.
This is our 3rd tour with EO, and I want you to know it's a wonderful time to come to Israel, and we're having a super time here in Israel. Right now we're at the Jordan River, possibly close to where Jesus was baptized.
This is our first trip with educational opportunities, and we have been down in Galilee, and this has just been a great trip.
Our folks are really enjoying the time we've had. We've actually had extra time at each site because there aren't as many tourists here right now, but that gives us more time to take in the scenes and hear the stories that are being told to us by our guide, and during travel and at each site.
This has been the safest trip that we have been on. No fears whatsoever. EO has handled the reservations each and every place that we've stayed, from hotels to meals. The tour bus driver has been fabulous and shown us just some of the scenic places here in Israel. Our tour guide, Mike, has been excellent.
I encourage you to try EO because you'll always have a wonderful time and you'll always feel safe.
Couldn't have been a better time. Before we came, we thought that this would be the tour of a lifetime, and it's even better than that. It's more than what we could ever imagine. We just want to say thank you to EO Tours for giving us this opportunity to see the Holy Land. It's been phenomenal.
Okay.
Thanks.
We had a few more questions come in here, so let me address those. Let me also say here, I think we're all sitting here, and as we mentioned, Omicron is definitely spiking here in the United States, and so we've certainly had our share of cases here in our office. And some of these questions relate to Ober Ammergau, and I know it's easy to sort of get, oh well, we're in this spike now. You know, by July, this will be a distant memory. I don't know if anyone remembers. I'm sure you remember Delta back in last summer, but so it's very easy to sort of project, oh, it's going to be like this for the next year. We may be having a whole different set of circumstances, hopefully a different set of circumstances, positive, by the summer for Ober Ammergau. Ober Ammergau is definitely preparing. They are getting ready. They're in rehearsal mode and planning on doing that, performing the play. Right now, if they had to do it now, I think there are restrictions to the capacity. But again, this is still months and months away. So they are going on, preparing like it's going to be a full theater, and the show will definitely happen. So, and we are preparing accordingly as well. And we will probably, we'll probably start addressing concierge requests for air tickets here now that we have the Holy Land back open, we may wait another month or so on that, but we're definitely going to keep moving toward that. We've been doing a lot of work during the slower period on our Oberammergau preparations, so we're in good shape there, I think. And encouraging news. I know England was initially requiring a long quarantine, but they're going back to just you being vaccinated to visit England and a test when you arrive, basically, just like other places are. So other countries are managing their response to Omicron. I think just trying to manage the hospitalizations, and tourism is continuing. So I don't see that changing. I don't think it's going to get worse from what I can see there. The case numbers, the other question we get a lot of here is, oh, this country's level 4, or that's level. I mean, I don't know if the CDC has revised their caseloads to determine who's at what level have always been based on the old Delta Alpha, numbers. Now Omicron has sort of totally changed that. So cases are huge, hospitalizations are vastly less. So the CDC has not revised their how they're classifying countries and levels. So for sure the U.S. is a level 4. So I'm not sure going from level 4 to level 4 is a big difference. If you're going to the grocery store, it's probably the same as traveling internationally at this point. If we're going by strictly the CDC numbers. So I don't want to make this sound like I'm not saying it's not serious and you shouldn't take steps to protect yourself. I absolutely would do that, but it seems like the world is transitioning to let's make sure the hospitals don't get overwhelmed, and that's really the main thing. The case numbers are becoming less and less relevant, especially with home testing. Who knows what the actual count here is in the U.S. We know we were over 1 million the other day, but I saw people think, well, it's probably 2 or 3 because people aren't going to get tested, or they're doing it at home and not telling anybody. So let's sort of keep that in mind as you go forward. We are definitely moving forward with our Oberammergau plans. One of the questions was if it's a combined Holy Land Oberammergau, will they get tested before going to Germany?
Okay, that's a good question. Right now, Germany, if you are vaccinated, does not require you to get an additional test to enter the country as it currently stands today. I actually read those regulations yesterday. So if you have an Israel first itinerary, because we have some that are the other way, if you have an Israel first itinerary, you would go to Israel, you would not need a test, you could just fly to Germany. If you go to Europe first into Israel, you would get your test in Germany, and then you would go to Israel at the end of your tour. So that's the current rule. Okay.
And another question here, we have a large group of 90 people going. And Sally, I don't know when you're traveling. I should know that, but I don't. How is that managed with social distancing? I don't have an answer on that. We will obviously do what's prudent there. And I think I don't think you're traveling in January. I'd be more concerned if that question came up for a group in January or early February. I think as we get further along in the year, this is going to be less and less an issue there. But anytime we have a group of 90 people, typically those buses can travel totally separately. You'd only be getting together as a group, maybe for a baptism or things like that. So Garden Tomb, the baptismal sites, all those are outdoor venues. Yeah. So for sure, we don't want 90 people closed into a small little room like the studio, rubbing shoulder to shoulder. That we would definitely avoid. So we really need to sit down and think about a couple of scenarios with a large group of 90 where they want to have a joint experience. But we will certainly try to keep those outdoors as much as possible. Just my initial reaction here there. And then also we have a question about the celebration cruise. And I know Tom and Jamie are both here, and they're going on the celebration cruise. Tom, you want to address that one, or do you want me to get my soapbox again?
Oh no, I'll be glad to James climb the soapbox for a second with that one. Folks, the CDC has made their statement. Cruise lines are still sailing. We're going to stay on the celebration cruise unless something happens at Royal Caribbean, Celebrity Group. They all close. we're going to sail. You know, one of the fascinating things I found out in researching this is we talked about the celebration cruise and shared with James, and we talked about it. Since June, Royal Caribbean Group has had 1.1 million people cruise. Out of that 1.1 million people cruising, they had 1,749 positive cases of COVID on board ships, which is 0.02% the population, which is quite a bit smaller than you're going to encounter in, as James mentioned earlier, shopping at your local store or discount market or whatever. So we are planning on cruising. We're still going forward. We are excited about it, looking forward to seeing everyone. It's always a highlight every year to get to be with that. We've got some really cool things we're going to do on board. We're going to share some exciting news there for the first time publicly. And so you folks who are on board are going to have a chance to get to be a part of that. So really excited about that. So yeah, we're going to say.
Good. I'm, you know, and I sat in a hotel in Orlando, had meetings in Orlando yesterday, and there's a lot of hotels in Orlando, and I did not take a PCR test to go into any of those, or, you know, so the cruising environment is probably the strictest regulated environment anywhere in this country. I'm not saying you couldn't, maybe you could get COVID there, but that you have the least amount of chance of any place in the United States of catching it on a cruise ship. And they've got doctors, they've got all the facilities, you will immediately be taken care of. So if something were to happen, but if you just look at the statistics, it's really the safest way to travel at this point. So let's see, we have one more. We had a question about the N95 mask on some airplanes. So one of the reasons and Tony, I appreciate that question. One of the reasons we do those digital finals now is because these rules change all the time. I mean, it's a constant. I don't know. Ashley's like working 24 hours a day trying to read things. So we try to get all that information into the final documents, but sometimes these things pop up at the last minute. So we always recommend, correct Ashley, that you check the airline website before you go to make sure the mask rule hasn't changed, or the luggage weight hasn't changed.
In Tony's case, because he was coming from Amman, I'm glad he brought this up. Thank you, Tony. With Amman, a lot of times you're going to fly home on Austrian or Lufthansa, which are Austrian and German airlines. And actually, that's more a requirement you're seeing in Germany or Austria. So their airports require it, and their airlines could require it. It's not something that Jordan requires. It's not something the U.S. requires.
It happened to me this time too.
Yeah. So with the case of Germany, just to give a little background there, Germany kind of functions off like internally in their country, they have like a red, yellow, green type model. And if they're green, you can wear a cloth mask. If they're yellow, you have to wear an N95 mask. If it's red, you can't go to the grocery store. So they switch that day to day. So it's, like you said, it's sometimes hard for us to keep up with, but we try our absolute best to provide that. Now, in Salma's case, when you went, did you just get the mask at the airport? They provide it to you?
So, no, they provide it on the flight because I entered the flight like with 2 masks on, but they were like, no, you can't wear this. So they provide it, but actually, to be honest, it's not really comfortable, the one that like they give it to you on the plane. So it's better to bring it with you, especially if it was a long flight. I had a stop also in Vienna airport. All of them are wearing like not like the cloth mask.
The N95.
Even the employees, everyone. So yeah, flying Austrian 100%. You have to get that.
Yeah, Austrian Lufthansa. So, I mean, I think the moral to this story is definitely read your final documents, and you may want to check in with the airline website before, because whatever we said here today may change by next month.
It wasn't a requirement in Austria when I was there a few months ago. It just has changed recently.
I didn't know about that too until I
Right.
I was at the boarding.
Good. Okay. Tom. So I think that's all of our questions. We will send it back to you.
Great, James. Thank you. Thanks, Ashley and Salma, for such great information. It was really, really great stuff. We do have a couple of questions I want to just highlight, probably straight to Ashley, real quickly. How soon will everyone receive the link to submit the vaccine cards and stuff at passports? They should have, if they're traveling and registered, they should have those 45 days, 75 days prior to travel. What's the deadline on that now? They're asking.
Tom, the February and March emails, we really need to.
We'll be emailing everybody who's missing those documents again just to check in. But we do have an email address that we ask that everyone send them to. It's great if you could send them to us via email. We're working on a few other fun, exciting services we can provide to make it easier to send your documents to us. So if you're traveling in February or March and you have not sent it to us, you'll receive a notification from us very soon with a request for documentation. If you've already sent it to us, you're good.
And Ashley may shoot me after this, but if anyone wants to be an experimental test group for our texting service,
we're sending it in February, March.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, that's why I said we have exciting stuff. So you stay tuned. We're working on this, but we do plan to have a texting phone number, so it's even easier than an email. You could literally take a picture with your phone and send it via text. Okay. So bear with me a few more days, and I think I'll have that for you guys soon.
Perfect.
Great, way to go, Ashley. Thanks for the new technology. We're excited. New stuff for the new year, right? So if folks go to Jordan, last question that I've got here, we arrange the testing for folks to return to the U.S. just like if they were returning from Jerusalem or wherever, correct?
Absolutely. We arrange it no matter where you travel with us. We pre-arrange it. And if there's a case where we can't, we let you know. For Jordan, it's a $40 test. So you can pay that in cash, $40 US dollars.
Great. Thanks again, Ashley. We really appreciate all the hard work that you've done. Salma, everybody keeps popping up here on the feed saying how much they've enjoyed, those who traveled, and I got to meet you there in the Holy Land recently, how much they enjoyed being with you. So thanks for your hard work there too. We really, really appreciate that. We've got a couple of things there we want to bring out. Want to share with you about our FAMs and our Oberammergau specials. Time's running out for Oberammergau, folks. You need to be hitting your groups now, inviting people. We've got some opportunities. Several of the groups are filling up, especially the river cruises, but others are there. But we have some spaces left. So please make that push again. As James says, we will be going to Oberammergau, and we're so excited about that. And I know that you are going to enjoy that immensely. We did have to change our Holy Land fam trip that was supposed to go on Monday. That was the 10th. We weren't for sure they were going to change things today. So as James said to me this morning, well, Tom, we could have operated that, but we've been buying tickets this very second and trying to keep people engaged. So we did move it to the 7th of March. We are going to open it up to new registrations. So you can see it there on your screen. Registration deadline will be the 7th of February. So you've got about a month here that if you still have some hosts that you would like to get to go the first time, or folks that pastors you've been trying to convince to be host, here's their chance. So please take advantage of that. We've got the Camino fam coming up. You'll see that there on your screen. Then the fall is a big fam time. We've got Greece coming up in November, turning it right back around with Turkey immediately following that. And then I have a couple that we're still working on getting pricing and stuff together. India, that's in October right now, I think, but we're still working on that. And then we're working on a England and Wesley fam that will be in November, possibly. So as soon as we can get dates finalized with all that, we will certainly let everyone know. We want to thank everybody who's helped us today. Of course, all of you who've been here on the webinar. There's a huge number of folks here today. Really exciting to see everybody. Hope that you're having a great new year, a great start to the new year. Thanks to Jamie, Mark, Alyssa for monitoring all the chat lines, for Ryan, Shelby, and John for all their stuff. And special thanks to Kelly there. And, you know, the gentleman on the interview from the Holy Land that was wearing the Hilltoppers hat, go Tops, Western Kentucky University. So we won't bring that up at all, James. So I had to pick that up. So thanks, James, Ashley, and Salma there in the studio. We really appreciate that. Our next webinar will be Tuesday, January the 18th. Look for more information coming out very soon on that. Thank you all again for being here.